Hey, Danny.
Hey,
You're looking luscious
everybody.
today.
Happy International Women's Day.
It is, isn't it? And I'm looking at one of the finest women ever
Oh,
created.
you're too kind. I should have you on here every day with me.
Well, every Tuesday's enough. I come in small doses. Ladies and
Yes.
gentlemen, on International Women's Day, we'd like to welcome you to our latest episode of Doing It Sober Live, available across all corners of the world exclusively to Fireside Chat. It's your favorite ectomorph, Chris Nell, and across from me, the world's favorite mesomorph, Daniela Park.
Yay.
In fact, we were DMing each other just across a couple of minutes ago, and I kept asking the question, "Why are you in such a good mood, Daniela?" She said, "I guess it's just one of those days where you're feeling mighty positive." But I'm guessing it's because it's International Women's Day, isn't it? Come on,
Well, yeah.
admit it.
You got to break. There's so many terrible things going on in the world with the war, and
Sure.
um, there's 300,000 Ukrainians having a baby in the next 3 months. So now
Holy moly.
imagine all those women, how they feel right now, you know, as refugees. They have nowhere to go. It's,
I shudder to
it's
think.
really, it's a lot going on out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I keep them in my prayers every given day.
Me
You
too.
know, you have to give props to Volodymyr Zelensky, who's literally putting himself on the line as president of the Ukraine,
Hmm.
putting, for fear of repeating myself, his own life on the line. That's
Yeah.
literally sacrificing yourself for your own people, and we keep Ukraine in our thoughts and prayers. We were supposed to have a guest on today, but I'm guessing he's either running late or he completely forgot. So let's just wing it and see where we go. You know, I'm not made up, Daniela's not made up, so let's just take it as it comes.
Yeah.
Danny, I want to ask you something.
Sure.
How long have you been sober now exactly?
September 11th, 2006.
Holy
So
moly.
15 years and over 15 years.
9/11, hey?
Yes. That was the
Well,
day that I called 911 because I had my stomach lining erupt open.
mm,
So not only was it 9/11 the date, it was also me calling 911 to save my life. So it was kind of funny how it happened on that day. Such a memorable day for me for sure.
well, of course. But the actual question I should be asking is, how's your thinking involved in the years ensuing in your sobriety?
Well, it doesn't just happen. I think we've talked about that before.
Mm,
It's something you have to work at, and I
sure.
I really got a lot of help from having a sponsor because I had no idea how to live. I mean, I didn't have a sober breath for 15 years prior to the day I actually did get sober. So how was I supposed to know how to go about my daily life without having a drink or a drug? I mean, that doesn't
Mm,
even, it doesn't register for me. I don't know how to do that. So I
yeah.
had to have a lot of people to lean on. And, when I worked the 12 steps, I learned a lot. And it's so good because not only did I admit that I had a problem, to myself and to my spiritual power, um, which caused me to actually gain a connection with a higher power that I did not have before. And it was so exciting for me to have this connection and be aware of it. because I never had that. I never, oh, please God, don't let me get this ticket. Now I'm seeing things that I know that are God, or I'm able to literally write down something that's troubling me, put it in the toilet and give it to God, and flush it away. Sometimes you just got to put your hands up.
Well, that's what I wanted to say with regards to changing my thinking as well. Laughing at the stupidest things. I'll give you a rough example. Today being Tuesday, tomorrow is hump day. What do you call a week without Wednesday?
What?
Humphrey.
You're
Well,
silly.
of course. And that's what I love about this. I'm finding myself really in a change state of mind, or rather a change of mind. When I
That's what
started,
I've been wondering about. What have you
what have
been?
you been wondering about?
Well, I've been wondering. You mentioned it a few times that you've had this certain spark, change of thought, life path, and what happened?
Can I call it an aha moment?
Oh yes.
Look, the pandemic screwed us all over, big time, hand over
Mhm.
fist. When I met you, I was volunteering for no money at this inkling little radio station. I was trying to get content on the air to make people think, not tell them what to do, think.
Right.
Because whether you agree with me or not, people don't think. They don't question. They don't wonder. It's just a
Right.
fact of, are we going to survive another day? So, at this aha moment after 2 years, I realized, why is this all happening to me? Because I screwed up phenomenally so badly. And I want to get him on the show. Jay Barnard, my surrogate brother from Canada, said to me, you need to start getting out of your own way. Paradox. How do you get out of your own way? Do you just stand idly by and let life flash beyond you in a sort of fast forward option on your DVR player?
Mhm.
Or do you actually say, you know what? Let's see how long the arm is. Am I making sense by any given measure?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love it. I think
So,
what you're saying makes a lot of sense.
so as a result, I've now been really taking a lot of inventory about my thinking. How do I react in times of stress? You just mentioned the Ukraine. A lot of people are up in arms would be the wrong term, but rather they are overtly concerned. Because let's face it, the big thing about Ukraine is it's bordering on Crimea. If we think about a couple of years ago, the reason why Russia wanted to invade Crimea was because of the fact that there's natural gas and oil.
Right.
So one could assume that the same is starting to happen here, just on spec. But bringing it back to the conversation at hand, I would rather say, if I control my thinking to the sense of why me, or not why me, try me, I'm starting to discover a lot of dimensions of my personality that was, dare I say, covered up by years of abuse
Mm,
because of wrought thinking.
yeah.
And Daniela, you've shared with me on the personal level as well in this regard, but you start to really become more attentive to the good things in life. I've had cancer. You currently are dealing with an autoimmune disease.
Mhm.
When you come to that, not why me, but try me, it's more of a fact of, you know what, I've been through all of this shit, bring it. Because
Yeah.
I'm in this place of complete serenity provided by my higher power, or whatever it is you want to believe in. And it's taking a lot of flack off of my shoulders, that weight off my shoulders. And for the first time in almost 4 years, I'm starting to enjoy myself. I'm starting to enjoy myself being here with you, starting to discover new skills, etc., etc., etc. I can't put it in any more finite words than that. It's a
That's
process of
wonderful.
discovery.
That is awesome. And you know what? There's still so much more to be revealed.
True.
And the fact that you're allowing it, I think it, we all have the choice. Do we allow ourselves to evolve, change? Because it's not easy, you know.
Mm.
And when we're ready, they say, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. And I love that
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's a good one.
I'm going to
And
remember that.
it's so true. It really is.
Well, I'm going to be very transparent here. I've been in a couple of management positions in my life in the media. I've done a lot of management work where I have people working under me. Now, you've got a business of your own. Every month there's a target. So when you keep that number in your back mind, obviously you're going to become stressed because as it approaches closer and closer to the deadline, you start to become panicky. Your verbiage verges on that of a dictator, and your attitude towards your employees, if you should have any, becomes, for the lack of a better word, extremely secular. I remember before I became a DJ, I used to work as a manager in a warehouse supplying car parts.
Mm-hmm.
And mechanics who used to work under me used to pull all sorts of stunts because, you have to follow rules and a routine. And the one day it was approaching month end, I just lost my temper. And I do admit that's a character defect. I think it's a I hope not I'm going to get hate mail or death threats, but I think it is a defect of the male gene. Gender is a very bad temper. Reason being, we've got overt amounts of testosterone and adrenaline in the system, which causes us to become irrational in times of duress, I think. And in so doing, oh, we've got Laura. Hi, Laura.
And my friend Woody's here again. I love it.
Hey, Woody. Listen, folks, if you would like to submit any questions with regards to what it is about sobriety you're interested in, please post it. We would love it to have some interaction. We've been gagging for it for quite some time. But now, as a producer, I did what your old man did. It's
Mhm.
also high pressure. It's not so glamorous as what a lot of people think. Spoiler. But under that same amount of duress, I find myself becoming calm. I had a conversation with my mother today where I said it's easy to complain, and I find a lot of my colleagues complaining about complete spit. I should actually say SH1T, but I'm just putting it a lot more diplomatic than usual because you've been in that situation before. You have experienced losing your temper from that previous experience, and what did it get you? Absolutely fuck all. And now you've had that lesson with you, and it rubs off on the people under you. They respect you more.
Mhm.
Surprise, surprise. They communicate with you more. Holy cow, that never happened before. And thirdly, some of them actually go on their knees, figuratively speaking, and praise you like a god because then you are a leader.
Right. That's what I
Wow!
was just going to say. You're a leader.
So, having those kinds of revelations, you can't dictate it to someone. You have to experience it for yourself. And
Yes.
I've spoken to other people who are devotees of sobriety, and they look at me with eyes as wide as saucers, but it is effectually true. You can't dictate to someone or exclaim to someone in so many finite amount of words what that kind of freedom, that new kind of experience, that new kind of interest entails if you just take a complete catamaran in thinking.
Yeah.
And Daniela, I'm not soft soaping you. You planted the seed with me 2 years ago
Hmm.
with how your thinking is. Sure, we are human.
Mhm.
Sure, there will come lingering moments of doubt. But holding on to that peace, that truth,
Mhm.
you planted that seed with me, and that's
Huh.
where it started.
That's interesting. And
And
here
this is
we
the part
are.
where you normally say thank you.
That's pretty awesome. And here we are, doing this show together. You were the first person
Who
I
would have?
thought of when I thought, you know what, I could really use a partner here. And I think we're a great team. And it actually makes me so happy when you tell me that you're having these revelations and stuff, and feeling a little more confident. And it makes me really, really happy.
Let's put a caveat on that.
Mhm.
Caveat. Effective use of English. Folks, one fine day, Daniela and I were communicating, not on a regular basis, but at certain times we would correspond. Out of the clear blue, she asks me, "Would you like to do a show with me?" And the first words that jumped to my mind is, "What the fuck?" I thought.
I think you were trying to get out of it, to be honest.
No, I wasn't. No, I
Oh,
wasn't. Honest,
okay.
honest to the higher
Okay.
power above, I wasn't.
Okay.
Because Fireside is a new concept. It's an exclusive platform, and I'm irregardless of the fact that I'm a millennial, I don't run to technology as my generation would.
Yeah.
But upon investigating that idea, that old Richard Branson quote, "Screw it, let's do it," came to the fray. And today, to quote you now, here we sit.
Yeah.
I love doing these on Tuesdays.
Yeah, it's awesome. We've had some great guests, and for the next 2 months, I've got every week booked, and we've got some amazing people coming on. Not every, a few are they're not in addiction. One is she's in France. She's really an expert on trauma. She had an eating disorder. She'll be on next week. Laura Zen. She's the Zen woman, and she's pretty incredible. I'm excited to have her come on. And
Kempt
we've had some
Monica.
awesome guests. We're the main purpose for me to do this is so I can learn. I love it's almost like a meeting for me, like a 12-step meeting, because I get to learn from other people.
I hear
Um,
what you're saying.
I wanted to laugh tonight. I'm a little disappointed. I don't know where Des went, but I looked for his name on here. I didn't see him, and
Des, where are you, son?
I'm not sure what happened. We did confirm, but it things happen. He's in Ireland,
Sure.
so who knows what's going on
In the
in
merry
Ireland.
month of June, from me home I started, left the girls of June, nearly broken hearted, saluted father dear. Sorry, you were saying?
Chris.
Sorry, I blanked out.
It's I don't know what type of guests you have on your cuppa, your podcast, because I know you have different.
Well, mine has been predominantly about sobriety. I still got a couple on the back burner that I've recorded since December. I need to start getting to them as fast as I can. Ever since I started this job, it's been a fact of I'm on call 24/7.
Mm.
But to answer your question duly, it has been focusing on sobriety. But the funny thing is, as you quite rightly say, aspects of trauma, aspects of narcissism, aspects of
Mm.
dealing with the past, themes extending beyond sobriety have popped up. So some people might call it coincidence. I would think more of serendipity. It's going to be a very interesting exploration period. And folks, when you're hearing about the show for the very first time, whether you've been watching this on YouTube or, for a matter of fact, you are downloading this on Apple iTunes or listening on Spotify or whatnot, please come here. Talk to us about your experiences with trauma, codependency, a gateway to freedom, whatever the case may be. We want to hear your story and we want to have fun with you. Tell us your story. This is quintessentially what the show is all about. Again, to our audiences, like our regular Woody, Laura, it's lovely to see you as well. Talk to us. Don't be afraid. We won't bite hard.
How do we read
You,
the stuff that comes in? I'm trying to see where the
let's have a
comments
look-see.
would show up.
Let's have a look-see. You know what? I'm going to do something out of the ordinary here. I'm going to invite Laura to speak here.
Awesome.
Laura, are you on the line? Let's give a second for Laura. Or for that fact, let's invite Woody to speak. If I can just get the menu open. Come talk to us.
Hello, folks.
Hello, Laura.
How are you?
Well, thanks to yourself, dearest.
So thank you for doing this show. I'm not on my headphones. I'm not on anything. I'm actually making dinner and talking to you. So if you hear beeping in the background,
we can hear you loud and clear.
okay, good. No, I think I wanted to tune in and get some perspective on trauma, on how people kind of deal with the changes of life. I'm doing a lot of speaking all of a sudden after in this moment of kind of people reemerging, and people in my profession are looking for some guidance on the idea of trust, and how over the last few months, being that we've been so isolated, our trust muscles are a little out of whack. And I'd like your thoughts on that.
Danny, ladies first, seeing that it's International Women's Day.
Um, Whoops, I was just trying to. I don't know what I just did. I lost. Okay. Uh, as far as I guess I'm. Maybe Chris, you can help me out. Trust, as in trusting the process of recovery, of sobriety, or just.
I think trusting themselves to trust one another.
Yeah, I surmised that would be the case. So what she's saying is, how does one move on if you've had a extensive history or period of trauma and these memories niggle in the back of your mind, no matter how long you're trying to move past it?
Mm.
How do you eventually bridge the gap of getting to trust, either in yourself or with one another? How far am I off the money there, Laura?
You know, I think I understand now. Sometimes you
You've
have to
got it.
explain. For me, when I came into sobriety, I was a broken woman. I had abusive relationships. I was, doing things, putting myself in harm's way. And when I got, sober, I started doing things that were esteemable acts, helping others, you know, returning the extra money that I was given at the grocery store, stuff that I would normally not do, little things. And I also took a head on look at my issues. And for the first 5 years, I was doing really well. I guess they call it a pink cloud. You're feeling really good. And then at 5 years, I hit a wall and I was like, okay, I want to kill myself now. But wait, why? And I didn't know why. Because I had taken a look at all of the things that happened in my life and wrote down 500 pages of each person that I had harmed. I had gone to everybody that I could go to make amends. And, uh, you know, whether it was, meeting with someone, writing a letter, or sitting by somebody's grave. You go to pretty much any length to get better, because if you sit with all those resentments and all that trauma, eventually, they say you're going to pick up a drink. So when I got to that 5 year point, my sponsor said, okay, well, you've done the steps already. You've looked at all these things about your life. Maybe you should see a therapist and we'll just do a quick run through of these steps again. What did we miss? And, almost to a year of the day, she had mentioned go to a male therapist and, try to get a connection with them, because I was still dating guys that were cheating on me in sobriety. Why is this happening? Everything else is going great. Why am I picking these idiots and putting up with it too? And so, almost a year to the day, I said to myself, this therapist is getting me nowhere. I literally hate coming here. It's just, there's nothing, I'm not getting anything out of this. And then on that next week that I went, boom, something came up that I never even thought about. We went through it, and it made such a Yahoo, aha moment for me to go, wow, okay, so this wasn't supposed to be revealed until now, because I don't think I was ready to hear it because it was heavy. And then right after that, I ended up meeting my husband. It was almost like everything just happened exactly the way it was supposed to happen. And I was already trusting that everything was going to be good before that, because that's what I've learned, is that if I don't trust or accept the things that happen in my life, then I am going to drink or drug or be a very angry person. So, you know, I practice it. I'm not perfect at it, but the trust, it got so much bigger, with all these aspects, the esteemable acts, this, that, it just contributes and you just keep building on it. How about you, Chris?
No,
Danny,
I appreciate that, because I think what I'm hearing you say, Danny, is that by opening yourself up to trust and trusting in yourself, especially in a time where you're kind of going through your journey to sobriety, that you have to take that risk, right? And I think that's where I'm hearing people right now who are dealing with trauma, who are unwilling or scared of that risk. And I think what you just said gave me a lot of pause.
Thank you.
and Danny, congratulations on that. You know, I was about to say the same thing, which mirrors yours. Laura, before I say anything further, I'm going to add a disclaimer to this on what I'm about to say. Because, of course, I'm the opposite gender, so I think from a man's point of view. Neither Danny and I are qualified psychologists. We're just experienced in this regard. Yes, it is a choice, but let your journey of recovery play out. There will be certain highlights in your walk where things will start to come together like a mosaic or a jigsaw puzzle. That's it as well. It's never easy. Shall I repeat? It's never easy. I think now where a lot of people have started to talk about trauma is courtesy of the fact that because of this pandemic, we've been forced to take literally a good long look at ourselves because life as we know it at the time came to a grinding halt, and a lot of these themes started to rear its ugly head. Uh, I'm an incendiary critic of the media, but I think the one thing which was good that came out of it was a miniseries called Dirty John, which started to highlight the fact of abusive relationships, abusive marriages, and abuse can take more than one form, not necessarily just physical, but emotional and psychological.
Yeah.
People who are narcissists will illustrate the thought in your head that you are absolutely mentally incapable. That's the negative. The positive is there are people, and this is what helped me as well. Start talking to people of similar mind, not necessarily people who consider themselves experts. I say so because they've got literary knowledge. They know the core of it, but they may not have experience, physical hands on street knowledge, street cred, or field experience in this given subject. That's the short term. But in the long term, there will come a time where you yourself, and I'm hearing you speak, you're a very, from what I hear, independent woman, long term, having gone through the array of knowledge from experts or from people who are advocates like Danny, like some of our other friends, things will start to click in your mind, which will ultimately bring you to the choice to start to trust again. The final thing is, it starts with you. Every morning when you look in the mirror, what is that visage you see in the mirror? Is it a complete stranger? Is it a monster? Is it a broken vase? Or is it a brand newborn butterfly? All these you ask yourself. And take your time. Nothing good in life, much like the tired saying, Rome wasn't built in a day, is true and succinct here. But if you start to become curious, as like what I said a couple of sentences ago, how long your arm is, start investigating. Try asking yourself, what is it that I love, that Laura love? Does Laura love pottery? does Laura love nature walks? And that positive uh, neuroreceptors will start to open on a scientific level, and everything will fall in place like a mosaic and a jigsaw. I hope that has given you a nice, even keel from both of us.
I appreciate you both, and I'm going to take a step off the stage.
All right.
Go
Thanks
for
so
it.
much, Laura.
Let's ask someone else to invite. I see there's a gentleman here or a lady who goes under the pseudonym The Real Skinny. The Real Skinny, would you like to ask us something?
Hello.
How
I
you doing,
actually,
mate?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Well,
None too
thank you.
shabby, none too shy.
All right. I just actually just came in and from another show I was listening to on here. Hopefully, I'll
Welcome.
be
It's
a
a pleasure
future
to have you.
creator. Well, it's I had RSVP'd for it and had forgot, and then it let me know the show was going on. I was like, okay, I got to go to that show now. So I'm kind of ping ponging here. I'm trying to get over and be a creator and bring my shows over here, and so I try to listen to all the shows I can. And the other day I was listening. There was 4 shows going at one time, and I was RSVP'd for all of them. They all started within like 30 minutes of each other or something. So I'm ping ponging back and forth to all 4 shows.
It's like channel hopping on the FM radio, the AM
It
FM.
is. It is. Well, with me though, on XM, I listen to anything that's Bob Seger, so I pretty well stay
Oh man,
within that realm. I'm a huge Seger fan. So
I'm a South African, and I trained in radio broadcasting. And one of my dreams would be to have my own channel on Sirius XM.
oh, that would be awesome. I would think anybody
Hey,
would be
you know
glad
what?
to do that.
I'm sorry to
Uh
interrupt.
oh.
Des just showed up.
Did he?
Our guest. Woo! Sorry to interrupt.
Holy moly!
My Kentucky friend. I'm not trying to be rude.
I'm also from Kentucky.
Well, I'm talking to you.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Des,
see?
are you here?
Yeah, I'm here, but I'm not. I can't see myself. Oh, except accent. Here we go.
there's
If
a
you
little
press on that
button.
hamburger menu, there'll be an option that says turn on video. There you are.
Hey.
I was trying to get in since 10 o'clock, but it wasn't. Did you just allow me? Is that what happened?
No.
No, literally, your icon just popped up literally like 5 bob ago.
Yeah, because I was on. I had you sent it. I had the email and I signed up, but then they just kept saying, they kept telling me to wait. I thought it was waiting for you guys to sort of like be ready for some.
No, they weren't. They weren't sure about you.
Yes,
You know,
that's what it was.
Like a lot of people.
Yeah, they were being very cautious about allowing me into Fireside, the app in general. Like,
well, it's because you're such a firebrand guy. And
Yeah.
with that said, let me introduce our guest. When new talent in the realm of stand-up comedy begins to break through the international divide out of the UK, such names like Jimmy Carr, Ricky Gervais, Billy Connolly, Hugh, Laurie, and Stephen Fry loom large. Respectfully said, though, the United Kingdom is mighty big. So where exactly does that leave the land of my people, Ireland? Do they provide more than just folk music and river dancing? Is the myth true that all Irish are privy to finding pleasure from the bottom of a pint glass? Well, since the 2000s, world, watch out! Brendon O Carroll was one of the first to break through the mold with his portrayal of a hard-drinking, foul-mouthed matriarch in drag in Mrs. Brown's Boys, which has enjoyed success on live stage as well as an eponymous television franchise. Now cue another bright spark, and he doesn't need a feckin' brew. In 2004, the name Des Bishop became known through his docu-comedy program, The Des Bishop Work Experience, which followed after years of honing his skills as an observational comic. Since that time, Mr. Bishop has kept busy as a popular stand-up, headlining many festivals and tours, which include Just for Laughs in Canada, as well as the Melbourne Comedy Festival in Australia. He has successfully produced and hosted many companion TV shows, and he has even competed on Dancing with the Stars. His comedy on stage is raw, no holds barred, which even includes themes of poverty, his own experience fighting cancer, and many other socio-economic issues. If misery loves comedy, Des Bishop encompasses that both make perfect bedfellows, and he makes us pee ourselves while doing it. We are absolutely enthralled to have him on our airwaves on DIS Live. Ladies and gentlemen, Des Bishop, make yourself be known, my friend.
Longest intro I've ever had in the history of my doing
You're
interviews.
speechless.
But you can't put Ireland and the UK together. That's the only thing. The Irish don't like that.
Of course.
There was
And
a
I knew you
war.
were going to say that, and I thought I'd take the risk.
They fought for their freedom.
That's right. There was a war.
Naturally.
You know. Incomplete. Anyway, we won't get into it.
Des, not only are you funny, you're very smart. I mean, I've listened. Well, I've followed you for a while, and I noticed you have a lot of knowledge about a lot of different things, and you have a lot of opinions on different things too, which I actually agree with a lot of them. But you've been sober since 1985. You said
95. You're aging me too much. I would have been 10 when I got sober if I was sober since 85. 95. No, July 16th, 1995.
Wow, I'm curious. How did it happen? Like, what was this? The main moment where you're like, oh my God, this is too much.
Well, I mean, both my parents were actually sober. My dad was like an active member of AA, and then my mother was like, I guess, a dry drunk, you would say, back in those days. I feel like it's a little judgmental these days, but back in the 90s, I guess she was like a dry drunk. She was a white knuckler. But so I started drinking when I was 12, but 14, I got caught a couple of times. So actually, my mother was like in my head from the age of 14 telling me that I had a problem. I mean, literally everybody in our family is alcoholics, like her parents, my dad's parents, all her, well, not all, but some of her siblings. Just a lot of alcoholism and a lot of pain that my mother experienced in her own childhood from her parents' alcoholism and then her own life. So there was just a lot of like alcoholism paranoia, which I feel like I was lucky with because they had it in my head that it probably wasn't going to work out from when I was 14.
God.
In my show, I joked that I got kicked out of school when I was 14 because I had a problem with alcohol. And then my parents had this ingenious idea to send me to Ireland to go to boarding school, which is actually like a joke. It's not 100% true in that I was drinking too much when I was 14, but it wasn't really the reason why I got kicked out of school. But it was like one of the symptoms of my own, I guess, discontent at that time. And in the madness of all that, I went to Ireland to go to boarding school, which is why I live in Ireland. And it gave me, I guess, a reprieve a little bit from the madness for a while, like the structure of boarding school. But then by the time I was 16, it all started again. And I was lucky. I was blessed with an inability to not get violent in blackouts. And I was also blessed with an inability to not drink to a blackout from a young age. So by the age of 17, I knew that alcohol caused me like major, like very bad results. So I actually went to my first AA meeting with my father when I was 17. And so, because I remember him saying to me like, oh, when it comes around to you, you don't have to share. But I was like, listening to everybody. I was like identifying with everything. So I only lasted another 2 years. So I got sober when I was 19 because that never stopped. The blacking out and the violence and the bad results and the losing friends and things. And then I had the great idea that when I take drugs, I don't get violent. So I tried to take drugs. But, I was very lucky because I just was like very protected from worse outcomes because, all you could get your hands on in my first year of college in Ireland, it was like ecstasy and like some like light amphetamine, like nothing crazy. It just wasn't a lot of drugs in my, I didn't have access to a lot of drugs. So from whatever I could get my hands on, I ran the gauntlet very quick. And I was so done, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, by the time I even started taking drugs, that just like the emotional breakdown from the highs and lows of other substances, I was a wreck by the summer of my 19th year. And I don't know why, but I got lucky. That summer I was in New York, and I had been in and out of meetings for 2 years, but I don't know what it was. It wasn't like July 15th that night was not my worst day of drinking, doing drugs, and but it was the last time that I drank. Just something clicked at some stage during that summer of '95, and I it worked for me. I mean, I know it's not for everybody. I don't know what your guys are, where you are on different.
I can relate exactly to what you're saying, Des. That aha moment.
Yeah, it just worked for me. I got very lucky actually because I was going to Perry Street. Actually, how open are you guys talking about like meetings and stuff? I didn't even check with you.
Go for it. Go for it. There's no
anything
holds
goes
barred.
on here. It's.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I got very lucky with. So I started going to Perry Street, which is a famous New York meetings all day, and actually a bunch of lesbians kind of like adopted me. I don't know what. I guess because they were young too, maybe, and they just pulled me to the side one day. It was actually like 2 or 3 weeks in. I was like very frustrated. I was complaining that nobody was talking to me, and I was actually close to a slip actually. So I said, "Fuck it, let me just express my frustration rather than hold it in." And these lesbians, they grabbed me and they were like, "Call this guy. He can be your temporary sponsor." And I hung out with them that whole summer. I just we would drive around. I had my mom's car, and we would drive around, and it was like it was fun. I would have never. I'm a kid from Queens that went to boarding school in Ireland. I wouldn't have had too much like exposure to like hanging out with lesbians in the village, you know. It was all pretty exciting. I totally lost touch with those women, but they really did save me. Like I had a great summer with those guys, and it just kind of made it fun, and it gave me enough headspace to decide to go back to college and go back to Ireland and sort of restart. And I had been to meetings many times in Ireland, but I hadn't been successful. So when I went back with a bit more of a foundation, I connected with those, mostly NA in Ireland. NA was like a little younger, and I got a core group of friends that are still like my closest friends today. But anyway, that's how that all went down.
Well, you seem, you're lucky to have your parents. Were you close with them? I mean, it must be nice to have that seed planted. I didn't even know I was an alcoholic until I was in a hospital room, with my stomach blown. I didn't know what it was.
Yeah, I mean, that part was lucky. I mean, listen, my mother was, my parents both, but my mother particularly was tough. The dry drunk part definitely led to some like unnecessary stress growing up, but it's a separate conversation. I'm actually doing a show about her at the moment, so I'm very on top of my relationship with my mother, which was a very full circle relationship, particularly by the time that she died. But the one thing you'd have to say is, due to her own extreme paranoia about alcoholism, I was blessed with the ability to get recovery young. I had plenty of more destruction in me. I had, like, no way was I like at a real, like at a rock bottom that could have been final. Like I had way more damage. So I was just very lucky to get to be pushed towards the solution early on.
Yeah.
There's another thing. You and I are similar in the fact that we're both cancer survivors.
Oh.
Yeah.
What did you have?
I had stage 3 skin cancer.
Yeah, I feel
It was
that's
it
more
was a
serious.
sarcocarcinoma that bordered on a melanoma.
Oh, are you Australian, by the way?
No, I'm South African.
Oh, South African. All right. Yeah, but it's just these the European genetics in these southern hemisphere towns. I don't know.
It's very confusing. I get you. What kind of cancer did you have, and
I
was
had
your cancer diagnosis during or after you got sober?
Oh, after I was 24. I was testicular cancer, though. This was a young man's cancer.
Yikes.
Really, do you believe it's like the best cancer to get in terms of dying? Like hardly anybody dies of testicular cancer these days. So it was quite shocking, and like you don't.
I can well imagine.
And I had a friend who had it. Funny enough, a friend in the program actually who had it, and he had like it had spread on him. So it was when he got it, it was quite serious. Like he was in the hospital, and then it came back on him. So he had like a bit more of a journey with it. So when I found out I had it, I thought like, oh God, but it didn't spread on me. So I just had the operation, like they removed the testicle, and then I got radiation, but the radiation was kind of like to be safe, like preventative, just in case.
Naturally, yeah.
It hadn't shown any spread. So
Thank God.
yeah, it was it was quite scary, and obviously you don't want to have that surgery, or you don't want to have to do radiation one, but pretty small. Like, it's funny, the word I feel is the word cancer has a lot more negative association than the experience that I had. But
I agree with you.
When I was able to get vaccinated early because of Governor Cuomo opened it up to cancer survivors, like literally like the third group. I was like, all right, well, I didn't really think my cancer was that bad, but I'm getting vaccinated.
Yeah, no kidding. Now,
Well,
obviously, it still works.
Sorry, Danny.
Because I've seen, I watched Summer House. I know you're with Hannah. I love Hannah, but you were in the episode and you guys were doing it up all over the place. So I know it still works.
Yeah, well, we weren't doing it up in the Kyle and Amanda's bathroom, but they made it seem that way. But that's the way it is. But other than that, yeah, no, it still works. Yeah. But honestly, the other coincidence of that time was I had just started working on an Irish television show, and the executive producer was actually a testicular cancer survivor, and he had 3 kids after having testicular cancer. So I didn't really have much of that concern, because he was like in my ear from the get-go, being like, it's okay, it's no big deal. And he actually had to get chemo and everything. His had spread also. There's 2 different types of testicular cancer. The one my friend had and the one that he had are the ones that are more inclined to spread. I had the other type. And but yeah, either way, actually, the whole not having kids thing was never really a concern. But that does come up a lot, though. Like, people are concerned for me, but it's actually it's not really an issue.
You mentioned something, and I think this is what a lot of people need to hear. Often the big C isn't necessarily the cancer scare. Often the big C is chemotherapy, because it's essentially an acid that goes through the bloodstream. It triggers nasty sort of sense, and your appetite goes out the window. I had more alternative treatments, but I think as well, what also came to light quite recently is the fact of cancer survivorship. When you hear that word remission, complete remission, there's a sort of a lingering sadness that happens, which was in my case, because, you originally had that dark cloud over your head, is my days numbered, yada, yada, yada. Did you had more or less the same experience after you went into remission?
I didn't really, because it was just like, the thing about testicular cancer is it's like so not threatening. Like, I never had a sense of like even remission, like they diagnosed it, they took it out, and then that was kind of it. So I had that 5 years of, you have to go for checkups for 5 years. But then, like, even after 5 years, like, insurance companies don't even care that you had testicular cancer. Like, so it never really, I never really had that much of a kind of survivor feeling. I remember there's a cancer support center here called ARC. And I went to a couple of groups in there, and I remember being a bit emotional early on, in there, but I didn't have that much of an emotional connection with survivorship per se. The only real emotional connection I had was with getting the message out there for young men to check themselves, and then sometimes men would message me and be like, "Oh, I saw your jokes," or I checked myself because I saw you had an interview, and it turns out I had testicular cancer. That would be more of a thing of like, it's good to get the info out there. But because it's such a non-life threatening one, I never really had that sense of survivorship. And I've always felt like, I remember I hosted a gig for this teenage cancer charity. It's Canteen, really cool organization. And I was joking with them about how, like, I'd meet some girl and she'd be like, "What'd you have?" And I'd be like, "Testicular cancer." And she'd be like, "Yeah, I had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma." Like, I mean, is testicular cancer even cancer? like cancer. But all joking aside, I always felt like, I didn't really feel like I belonged in the same room of suffering as, like, somebody who had, like, pancreatic cancer or something like that.
Of course. let's get to your comedy. Now, I'm always fascinated by the mind of a stand-up comedian because they're humorists. They often use words, imagery, symbolism to elicit humor. Whereabouts did you start to realize that you could twist all that and make people snigger, giggle, and guffaw?
I didn't have much of a kind of a thinking about it moment. My dad would always joke with me in the 80s. There used to be a lot of stand up on TV in the 80s in the States. And I would always be watching it. I just thought, I just loved watching it. And my dad, I remember saying, "Oh, you're going to be a stand up comedian." But like, it never really entered my mind that I would do it. And then it was actually, it was through the program. It was like a member of the program was a resident MC of this comedy club in Cork in Ireland. And I was already doing drama society in college, and I was trying to get on stage, but I never thought about doing stand up. I really didn't. But because we started going to this comedy club with him, and I was getting up on stage they have a joke competition, not like an open mic, not like a who wants to try stand up. Literally get up and tell like a Irishman, Scottishman, Englishman walk into a bar type joke, and then biggest round of applause would win a bottle of Buckfast. Would actually win a bottle of booze, which was hilarious because but I used to like getting up and telling the jokes, but I was still there, and I wasn't getting up thinking like I want to do stand up. But I guess I subconsciously I was. And then one time I got up and before I told the joke, I don't know, something had just happened, and I just started kind of like telling the story of what just happened. And it was after that my buddy, the resident MC guy, said like, "That's it." Like he had already been saying it to me, but he was like, "That's it. Like you're literally doing it. You don't even know you're doing it, and you're doing it." So he gave me 2 weeks, and I did my first show. So he kind of pushed me into it rather than like me having thought about it for any length of time. But the minute I did it, that was it. I was all she wrote. It was a addict moment. I was addicted. I was into it pretty quickly, and I knew within a very short space of time that this is what I was going to do.
Wow. Now, I was thinking about your Mamma Mia show, and it's your show. You're the only one up there, so you have to come up with this entire bit of like a whole comedy act. I can imagine that's pretty stressful.
Well, with a show like that, Mia Mama, by the way, Mamma Mia is the ABBA,
Mia Mama,
the ABBA musical. Mia Mama. I deliberately did it that way, but Mia Mama just means my mother, But anyway, with a show like that, with a show that like commits to being a stand-up, well, really more like a one-man show about death, really, but also about relationship with your mother. And there's actually, it's pretty, at times it's deep enough, like legacy of trauma. I go right back into like the various levels of suffering that led to the way that my mother was and the way that I am. But so once you commit to a show like that, you say, I'm going to do something that talks about death and a complicated relationship with a mother. It's a bit of a process. It's a lot of trial and error. Some funny bits are easy to find in that, like you're going to do some jokes about your childhood. It's very easy to do funny jokes about, growing up in the 80s versus now, getting hit and wooden spoons and all this kind of, all that type of stuff is pretty easy to find the humor in. So that gives you a little bit of a buffer for when you want to drop a little bit more serious stuff. The hardest stuff is being funny about the serious stuff. Those are the hardest jokes to write because you got to get that balance right. And then when you start to feel like you have enough of the raw material, then it's just about getting the pacing right and deciding, what areas are best to focus on. Because most stand-up, a show like this usually tends to be like an hour max. So you want to make sure that the best stuff is in there without. You don't want it to just be laughs all the time, because how can you do a show about your mother dying and like it not be at least somewhat poignant at times? It wouldn't be a fair reflection of the experience. But you don't want it to get stuck in the mud of grief, or you don't want to be too morose. So that a lot of that stuff is just trial and error.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I actually love that layman's approach to humor, because I interviewed Frank King. I don't know if the name might sound familiar, a comedian out of Oregon who called himself the mental health comedian.
All right.
And I presented the question to him one time: misery really loves comedy, because a lot of the anecdotes that are told on stage. Name all the greats: Stephen Wright, Alan King, George Carlin. I did say Stephen Wright. All of the heavyweights, they are transparent, but they just have that edge. So I'm often inclined to think that humor is a God-given talent. It's not just something that can be manufactured. You can write a joke, surely. Excuse me, that was a tongue twister. You can write a joke, surely, but you never know where it's going to land. And especially in this era of PC culture, how do you know to skate the line or even step over it if you're so brash?
Well, in this case, it's easy for me because this is all just like personal to me. So it's actually whatever about the PC part, but even just like in terms of what's acceptable and what isn't, or where's the line. In a show that's quite personal, it's pretty easy to know where that is because it's like this is my life, like it or lump it. But all jokes to a certain degree are trial and error. Like if you look at like George Carlin's a great example because not that I'm saying I'm as good as George Carlin, but the somewhat thematic nature of a lot of his shows and the little bit more sort of long form storytelling of his, particularly like his later stuff. I would aspire to that, but like he would obviously have still had like a lot of trial and error and getting the pacing right and knowing when to do his like fast talking and knowing when to sit back. So all the comics, but a lot of that is craft. I know you're saying it's like a God-given talent, which is obviously that's part of it, but there is a lot of craft to it. There is a lot of learning. And obviously the more you do it, the annoying thing about stand-up, which is like a good and a bad, is that your material always gets better the more that you do it. And sometimes it even gets better after you say have recorded it, and it would be it goes out to to the masses. You can still do it after that. It can still get better. So like a lot of things like a film or even a play, you hone it and then you put it up. Whereas a stand-up is like you think of something funny and you put it up and it keeps getting funnier, but you're still performing it. So, sometimes it's not fair for the audience. Sometimes they haven't seen the best version, but then sometimes it's like annoying for you because you're like, shit, I fucking recorded that. And now it's like way better later.
We're running out of time, but I want to ask you about your sobriety. Have you had moments in all those years, with your sobriety thinking, maybe I should take a drink, or how did you deal with different fears and things that came up, or were you just a really solid guy in sobriety?
I mean, I was a solid guy in sobriety in the drinking and using sense, but like life was way more difficult than staying off the drugs and alcohol. And it's funny because I feel like there's just much more awareness in modern days. Like in society these days, there's just more awareness about mental health or spirituality, looking after yourself, well-being, all the different words that people like to put on these things. We used to think we were unique. I remember, like all the Irish guys, all of us in early recovery, we were like, well, we're the lucky ones because we were so fucked up. We were forced to work on ourselves. And the rest of these people out here have no idea, because they're just out there getting by and they don't have a fucking care in the world. And of course, we were wrong. They did have a care in the world, but we were right that we were lucky to be forced to look after ourselves. The good news is that I feel like it's more mass media now for people to talk about stuff that we used to find quite unique at meetings. Like 30% of all podcasts are about mental health, and a lot of people talking about different means of dealing with their anxiety, dealing with their depression. All this stuff is out there, which I find really healthy, and I also think it's great to just completely normalize like that life is tough. I mean,
yeah.
I've experienced. I can identify much more with everybody now than back in the day. I used to think that we were the fucked up ones. We were the sort of the chosen few that were tortured. But now I realize that we all have our stuff. And God, I've had plenty of struggles, broken relationships, grief, illness, my own mistakes, the repercussions of my own behavior. I've run the gauntlet of all that with success and failure. So the booze drugs part, really not much temptation. And even though I live a life where I'm around that stuff, it's actually like very unattractive to me. Like it's to this day, there's very little about it that appeals to me. But yeah, God, plenty of life struggles.
Yeah. Are you living in Ireland? Is that where you're?
I split my time. It just you've kind of come into my orbit at an odd time where I was in the States for almost all of the pandemic, and then during that time I met Hannah. It's all happened like during the pandemic. So for the first time in my Irish life, which has been a long time here, I have like more going on in my life in the States. So I mean, I'm a bi-coastal guy back and forth, but I probably find a bit more going on in the States for me now. But currently, I'm in Ireland because I'm doing all my 2020 postponed dates. This show, Me and Mama, that we've been talking about, was supposed to be in 2020, and I had only done 6 or 7 weeks of it when the world shut down. So I'm now doing mostly 70% postponed dates from 2020, plus a few dates that we added.
That's awesome. I
good on
read
you,
the
brother.
reviews. You're getting raving reviews that people are saying.
People keep saying that, but that's because I'm posting all the positive ones. I'm not posting, the people that are like, I cried your whole show and I wish I didn't get in touch with my feelings and it was supposed to be funny and I'm now,
That's
really
the
in
thing.
pain.
They did. They said it was therapy too. So it's
Yeah, I posted that one. Yeah, that was good.
that is awesome.
Well, Des, I think I speak on behalf of myself and Danny and our audience here. Well done, and especially well done on finding a niche for yourself. And you know what? May you always have food and raiment, a soft pillow for your head. Should you leave the earth after this day, may you reign supreme in the heavens above for 40 years before the devil knows you're dead. But for the time that you're here on earth, may you live to be 100 with an extra year to repent.
Oh, thank you very much. That's what the Chinese say. Yi bai sui, 100 years. That's like that's what they say when you sneeze.
Yeah. You how long did you live in China?
2 years. That's the next podcast, right? You guys are wrapping up.
Yeah, but how long did it take you to learn Chinese? I mean, it sounded like you really knew your stuff.
I mean, I started having comfortable conversations 6, 7 months, but 8.5 months I was able to make people laugh on stage. But then after a year, I was pretty good at doing jokes in my broken Chinese. But then I ended up spending another year there because I liked it so much. So at the end of the 2 years, I was pretty good at performing in Mandarin because I started going out with somebody, and you need to be quick when you're having an argument with your girlfriend. You learn quick how to fucking speak fast enough to keep up with the argument.
Right. Well, I can't
Des,
thank you enough for joining us. I'm so glad we got you on.
Yeah, sorry for being late, but I genuinely was trying to get on. They weren't letting me on.
not a problem. Stuff
Thank
like
you.
that happens.
Thanks a lot.
Ladies and gentlemen, Des Bishop on DIS Live. It was great to have you. And plus, also, remember, there will be, at one point or another, giveaways if you participate. We also participate in Q&As. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Or, like with Laura here, I'm going to start dragging people out of the audience so you can make your voice be heard. Laura, thank you so much for you. And Danny, thank you so much for you.
Thank you.
Have a great one, guys. God bless.